Good afternoon and welcome everybody to the October 27th TEA LEA webinar. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Dr. Leo Caliscio and I will be your host today. As a reminder, the chat feature is disabled. However, you may put questions in the Q&A, and you would also want to include your email address when you do that so that presenters may also contact you by email as needed. And so with that, our first topic today is inclusion in Texas, assistive technology resources supports. And I'm going to introduce you to Liz Barraza from TEA and Tammy Sinclair, who is a project manager with Inclusion in Texas out of ESC 20. And so I will turn it over to you to take it away.
Thanks, Leo. So Tammy will be walking us through a presentation related to some resources that have become available as a result of our work together. And I will let you take it away, Tammy.
Thank you, Liz, Leo, and everybody that's attending today. Welcome to the Inclusion in Texas statewide assistive technology AT support overview. The Inclusion in Texas is working to promote a statewide culture of high expectations for students with disabilities and significantly improve academic and functional outcomes for students served by special education. The network assists LEAs build capacity to develop and appropriately implement instructional programs that provide meaningful access to inclusive environments and grade level standards where appropriate. Assistive technology for Texas inclusive practices enable students with disabilities to access the curriculum, increase independence, and participate actively in education and life activities. Assistive technology does not always mean the use of an electronic device. It also includes low-tech items such as pencil grips and timers. We encourage you, to explore the resources you need to successfully include technology devices and services to support your students in your schools. You can scan the QR code that you see on the screen or follow the link that's at the bottom of the slide here that takes you to www.inclusionintexas.org. Go ahead and introduce you to our team here. Thank you, Leo, for the great introduction. Myself, I'm Tammy Sinclair. I'm one of the project managers along with Erin Keltz. She's the other project manager for Inclusion in Texas. We have Bianca Cole, that is our coordinator here at Education Service Center Region 20. And then we have Ms. Liz Barraza as well at TEA. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our assistive technology or AT statewide resources. The first one that we're going to look at is the Texas 4-step model. That includes legal references, key terms and consideration, assistive or AT service considerations of special factors, four-step AT consideration model, uses considerations, and additional resources and references. This 4-step AT consideration model is a process for the ARD committees to use in the development, review, and revision of every IEP. The use of a model ensures consistency and that AT is equitably considered for all students with disabilities. The Texas 4-step model incorporates best practices in AT consideration as prescribed by the Quality Indicators for Assistive Technology, or QIAT. The next resource that we're going to look at is identifying the right tool, a reference list of technology supports for struggling readers. This support addresses the process of determining appropriate low-tech and high-tech tools that will assist in acquiring and practicing specific skills needed when learning to read. This resource is not meant to be a comprehensive AT resource guide. It is a resource tool for professionals, students, and parents working with technology or assistive technology to help mitigate long-standing equity and accessibility gaps in line with the National Education Technology Plan, or NETP, and to support reading progress for all students. Reading aligns with the 5 research-based components of effective phonics-based reading programs: phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. Okay. The next thing that we're going to look at is Inclusion in Texas and Assistive Technology Industry Association, or ATIA, what we call it for short, partnership. So the Inclusion in Texas Network is pleased to announce a continued partnership with ATIA to offer unlimited access to ATIA online courses for all education, support staff, serving students across Texas, as well as their families and the students themselves. In these courses, there's 60-minute online education programs, and they include live and recorded versions by national experts on a variety of topics across the spectrum of assistive technology, including tools and devices, best practices, and implementation strategies for integrating assistive technology effectively into the home and in the classroom. You can learn more about these free courses on the Inclusion in Texas ATIA web portal. Additionally, complimentary CEUs are available on completion of these programs. So all education support staff serving in Texas can use this Inclusion in Texas access code, and you'll see that on the screen here. It's PD23 Inclusion TX. And here in a second, I'll walk you through what that looks like. This code was open in September 1 of this year, and it'll be good all the way through August 31st of 2023. Let me go ahead and share, and I will walk you through what this looks like. Okay, thumbs up. Hopefully you guys can see that. All right, so when you click on or use the QR code, or you go to our website, which I hope that you will favorite today and bookmark that little star up there. This is our Inclusion in Texas main site. For assistive technology, you have an overview. The state resources that we just walked through will be found on this page. To get to the ATIA partnership page, you'll click on AT Professional Development. And right when you get to that page, again, you'll see that code here that will step you through. If you ever forget, you can come back here and find that. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to log in, and you're going to create a profile, or you can sign in if you already have a profile that has been created. Once you go through and you sign into your courses, you'll see that you've got a full range of different course availabilities, and most of these are going to have prices associated with them. We do have bundles that are already created that you can attend, and again, most of these are free, and it'll tell you if the code does not work. But once you go in and you add a course to one of your sessions, or you add one of the sessions to your account, it'll walk you through. It'll tell you what credits are available for it, a little biography about your speaker. And then when you add it to the cart, you have the availability to go in and add that promo code. Once you add the code in and you apply, that any fee that is associated will be waived, and it'll be added to your cart. I'm going to come back to this main page. Okay, so again, once you sign in and you create your profile, there will be a sign up form. You will put in a school if you have one associated with that. If you're a parent and you're a parent that has your school associated with it, if you're a paraprofessional, if you're an administrator, there are different pathways that you can join. You also have full access to our learning catalog as well. And again, these are open through August 31st of 2023. If you do have any questions, and I'm going to let Liz pop back over and continue sharing our screen, you can reach out to me at tammy.sinclair@esc20.net.
Thank you. And I can go ahead and share that in the chat with everyone.
Awesome. And if you'll, will you share the last couple of slides for me, Liz?
Liz, did you put that in the chat already?
Not yet.
Okay, let me know when you're ready, and I'll set that up for you.
Okay, sounds good. But that does conclude the presentation for today.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, and so thank you very much, Tammy and Liz. We're going to move on to session number 2, which is legal framework updates. And we're going to hear from Susan Bynum, a TEA manager, and Leland Edwards, ESC Special Ed Director out of ESC 20. Take it away.
It's out of ESC 18, actually.
ESC 18, okay.
But Lee is here, and we have some updates to the legal framework that she's going to share with you. Hopefully, it will make it easier to navigate, and it's definitely very nice. Go ahead, Lee.
Okay. Last year it was decided that the framework needed a fresh look and that it needed to be more user friendly. So that's what we've done. Welcome to our redesign. We have a new name and logo. We're now the Texas Legal Framework. And as you can see, the logo in the circle with the scales of justice overlaid onto the state of Texas. Well, it's not going forward. Okay. There, now you can see it. Okay, I'm sorry, I got to use my, it's good. If you want to follow along on your phone or on some other device, if you have 2 screens, fw.escapps.net, or you can use this QR code. I'll give you just a minute. Because there's so much information on the homepage, it's presented here and in the future in 2 parts, the top half and a bottom half. This is the top half of the homepage, and this is the bottom half of the homepage. There are almost 2 ways to get into everything. That way it's a little more user friendly. If you would like to go to TEA's website, here is a place in the top left-hand corner, and here's a place in the bottom left-hand corner, and they will both take you to the same place, which is the TEA website. And I closed it out. Okay. There are 2 ways to access your legal framework contacts. Now, this piece isn't exactly up there right this minute, but it's coming, and right here. And that's so that you can get a hold of the legal framework contacts. And if you'll notice right here, you can almost read that I have hovered over Region 13, and Region 13, the legal framework contacts are Lindy Fraser and Shirley Sanford. Here, if you click on Contact Us, it will take you to the TEA Contact Us page. And here is the sign up for TEA updates. And here is the administrator login. There are many a person who could not find the administrative login previously, but here you go. At the top of the ribbon is the administrative login, and it works the same as before. Oh, let me go back there and show you. Sorry. Well, you put in your email, you put in your password. If you forgot your password, then you click here. And if you want to set up a new account, that's where you do it. When a user needs to get a hold, wants the help desk, it will give them the email and the number to call if they click here. Sorry about that. If they click here, it will take you, and it will give you the 561 IDEA or framework help at esc18.net. And here's the home button. And here is frameworks, and here is frameworks. And if you were to click here, it will take you to this page. As you can see, there's a search engine here, and here are all of the frameworks. And if you were to go into one of the frameworks, as you can see, we have the summary cells. That's the little snippet of the law. And they are either a practice or a document. It's practice or it says document. If there's blue font, if this part is blue, then that means to practice, that needs to be able to be seen, and they're still required, they're still part of the law. They are to be reflected in practice. And if you did a black cell, like for instance this one, and it says to document items indicates requirements to be documented in the special education process. They can be on forms or by representative statement in a written dialogue. And the other thing that you can find in the frameworks, if you click here, it will give you the citations. If there's more than one, there will be more than one listed. But if you click here, it will give you the citation in English. That's one of the things that we do not translate into Spanish. As you can see, each framework has a English or Spanish, and you can go there and it translates it all into Spanish. But if you notice where it says citas, it will be in English. Next comes publications. You can find it at the top on the ribbon or on the bottom half. And if you click here, it will take you to the Notice of Procedural Safeguards, the Parent's Guide to the ART Process, and the Special Education Rules and Regulations. The Special Education Rules and Regulations is sometimes referred to as the side-by-side. It was updated in August of 2022. And the Notice of Procedural Safeguards was updated in September. And as you can see, September of 2022, and you can see that there are quite a few languages that it's been translated into, and so have the Parent's Guide to the ART Process. Again, the side-by-side is only in English because it is the law and we do not translate the law. Next comes the glossary. This is at the top on the white ribbon. And then if you scroll to the bottom, here it is at the bottom, on the bottom half of the home page. And if you were to click there, you can see both will take you to the same place. Here's the glossary, here's the terms, here's the acronym, and here's the definition. And if you want to go to the any other, like if you, after you got to, and say you wanted to look up something that started with an O, it will take you right there just by clicking one of these things, one of these letters on the right-hand side. They're static, they're there all the time. You can scroll or you can use those. Next comes updates. Here it is right here in the top. And here it is on the bottom half. And if you click there, as you can see, they're in reverse chronological order. And each one of them, if you click on this, they're linked, so you go directly there. You don't have to go look for it. All you got to do is click right there. The other thing I wanted to point out is that over here on the right-hand side is the change document. And the change document will show you what has been changed. And it will, if it's red, that's what used to be there. If there's green, that's what's newly added. And remember, blue was practice and black was you needed to document it. And there's another example of red, and here's green. And next comes resources, and here's resources at the top and resources at the bottom. And as you can see, there are 4 different areas: national resources, parent resources, state resources, and then there's our state networks. And as you can see, I'm going to just choose autism. The things are not duplicated. These are national resources. Here's parent resources, and here's the state resource. And then you could go over and you could click on the Texas Statewide Leadership for Autism Training. Then comes documents at the top. As you can see, what we've done is we went across the yellow ribbon. Now we're going across the white ribbon, and we're at the last area, but also down at the bottom. There's 2 ways to get to almost everything. And here is what documents looks like. What you see here is in English and in Spanish. And we will have more documents later, but this is where they are posted. And as I pointed out earlier, you can get to everything in English and in Spanish. If you're on English, or if you want to go over to Spanish, all you got to do is click right there. And that is found on every page in the frameworks. And this is coming soon. Right now, if you click on it, that's what it says, is coming soon. It looks like this, but we're going to have a little PowerPoint presentation so that if you're new to the framework, it will walk you through and help you understand. And hopefully it'll be about 2.5 minutes long. And this is a new feature. And this feature is you can put in a district number or the county district name. Like for instance, I'm sorry, but now I'm live. Okay. So like Highland Park. As you can see, there are lots of Highlands, but Highland Park, there's one in Region 10, there's a Highland ISD in Region 14, and there's a Highland Park in Region 16. And so whichever one you wanted, that's the one that you would click on. Say you wanted to go there. Okay, this is the one in Region 10. And when you go in here to Child Find Again, to the frameworks, as you can see, here are the board policies. If you want to check board policies, and if you go here, EHBAA, that's a new one. as you can see, here is their local policy. There's the legal policy, and there's the local policy. And let me get out of that. And here are the operating procedures. And there's just one operating procedure per district. And as you can see, there it is. Good job, Highland Park. And here is another search feature. As I showed you, there was a search feature in the framework, but say you wanted to look up something like, you wanted to look up, say, graduation. It will list them in order of the number of hits. And there are 12 times that in the framework graduation, excuse me, there are 12 frameworks that have graduation. There are 15 hits in the graduation. There's 10 in parent notification and personal graduation, 4 in summary of performances. You can read all of those. But when you go into a framework, this is the nice part. The word you're looking for is highlighted, and that's a good thing. And here, in case you have a question and you want to talk to someone and you want more than just the legal citation, you can click here, right here. This is the information for SpedTex, and right here is, if you click on that, that will take you to SpedTex's website. And here is the box that says stay informed. And when you go here, if you'll put your first name, your last name, you'll put your email, and then if you confirm it, and then you can subscribe. And then whenever we do an update, it will automatically send you, and it will tell you what the update is. And the last thing is inform us. And if you will go here, there are 3 questions that you can answer yes or no. And like maybe you didn't find what you're looking for, if you would tell us, then maybe we can help. And if we did something right, you could tell us that. Do you have any questions?
Well, Lee, the chat is closed and we can't really hear from our audience, but if you have anything in the Q&A, I will get it to you. And thank you so much for the presentation. Do you have anything else for us, Lee?
Nope, that's it. And I hope that everybody can find what they're looking for. And if they can't, just contact us and we'll guide you to the right spot.
Super presentation, Lee. Sorry about the tech issue I had that had me trying to remember exactly your ESC, but now I got it. And Susan, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Not at this point. We will be messaging out when we know what else needs to be uploaded for next year, but that will be messaged out likely through a TAA.
Perfect. Thank you very much. If you will, if that's the end of that presentation, if you'll stop sharing the screen, then we'll be able to move on. Okay, thank you again. Our third presentation today is overview of new TEA guidance documents, specifically the technical assistive behavior supports and guidance for students with disabilities. We're going to hear from Deanna Clements and Jerry Procata, both TEA managers of technical assistance, as well as Nathan Pullen and Frank Solano, TEA specialists and grant managers.
Thanks, Leo. I'm going to get us started. I'm going to share my screen and show you where to find the document that we're going to do a little walkthrough of today, and just kind of orient you to this guidance document that we have out. So I'm going to share, and you should be seeing the TEA Special Education webpage. And if you don't know how to get there, I'll just kind of model for you. It's tea.texas.gov. And then if you do /Texas SPED, that will get you to our page. Texas SPED, and it's going to bring you here. Good one to bookmark. Keep ready to go. Although for some reason that didn't work for me. I don't know why. You probably made a typo. So when you get to our TEA Special Education page, there's a lot of information on here. If you're looking for guidance documents, technical assistance resource documents, they're under this card that says technical assistance and guidance. So you go there, and then it's a little, this is where I think it's confusing. If you go to this one for technical assistance for schools, that actually takes you to information about our technical assistance networks, projects like TSLAT, the TIER project, Inclusion in Texas that we heard from earlier today. Those are all listed there. But this other card, that's special ed policy and guidance, is all TEA branded, sort of various guidance documents like our technical assistance guidance. So when you go here, there's some information about some courses, and then under this header, TEA Special Education Resources, you will see all of the technical assistance guides that we currently have in the series. So we have one on child find and evaluation. We've got 504 there's one on IEP development. And then our newest one that we're talking about today is behavior supports and guidance for students with disabilities. So if I clicked on that link, it would open a PDF up, but I already have it open. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull the PDF up. So one thing I want to point out before the team takes over and kind of does a walkthrough here is that you will see that there is a version now that says updated October 2022. We just replaced this version for one that was dated August. So if you have the August 2022 version saved on your computer or something like that, you're going to want to replace it with this one. Don't worry if you've already read it cover to cover, there are not substantive changes. The biggest thing that changed was we had some links that broke because one thing with the legal framework website refresh, which looks beautiful, but we had to go in and redo some of our links to some of the legal citations. And then we also had some guidance that came out from the United States Department of Education, from our friends at OSEP, that came out like the week we were ready to put this up. And so we did get some of those question and answers that came in from the federal government in the August version, but not exactly in all the places we wanted to. And now we've broken it up more clearly to say there is like question 7 in this document. So we've added that in. And there's a couple small language changes throughout, but not major changes at all. If you have the old version and had already read it, you just want to replace it with this new one. So you have all the working links and all the newest information. Another change that was made from the previous version was we just cleaned up the table of contents. The first version was every single thing was just one running table of contents, and now it's divided more with like the chapter header and then indented to show you like the subheadings. The table of contents is all clickable, so if I click on any of these, say when to conduct an FBA, it's going to take me to that section. So I'm going to go back up here to the table of contents and show you a couple features. We have an appendix in this technical assistance guide that has some nice resources that come out of our TIER project, like a timeout recording log that you can use and things like that. So you want to check the appendix out, and they're linked throughout the guide. It will link you to the appendix if we're talking about that resource. And then I just want to take a second to talk about the welcome letter a little bit. We do have a welcome letter in all of our guides. And they're pretty similar. We use this little pencil icon to say this is a note. We use lowercase links to say this is a resource. This is going to take you out of the document to some other sort of technical assistance resource, or a resource that might live in our networks or somewhere else at a national center or something. But if we have a link that's in all capitals, that's just a signal to the reader that this is taking you to a legal citation. So if you're not really interested in checking all the legal citations, that's going to tell you, are you clicking on a resource versus a legal citation? Best practice tips we call out by using a blue, it says rectangle, but I'm going to say it's more like an oval-ish rectangle, but you'll know it when you see it in the document. And then we, of course, we use the glossary to the legal framework. We don't redo the work of defining a bunch of terms. We have the legal framework glossary, so we just point you to that. And this is a constant evolving process annually where we kind of take a look and say, what links are broken? What resources have moved? So we do welcome people to email our special ed inbox when you do find something that isn't working or there's a problem or anything, that email is there. So that is really sort of in a nutshell how we have these guides set up. The others in the series are pretty similar. And what we're going to do today is just spend some time pointing out some highlights of some key features and some key resources. So I'm going to kick it over to the first team member, Frank Solano, who's going to talk about, and the reason I'm having Frank and Nathan, who's also on the call today, they really did a lot of the initial foundational work of drafting all of this work. And so they were, I'm sure, really glad when I told them they were going to come on and show their faces and kind of get some credit for really being some of the people behind the scenes here at the agency that did this work from the ground up. So Frank, I'll turn it over to you and you tell me where you need me to go.
Thank you, Deanna. This is perfect right here. This basically, this guidebook starts out with kind of the first section just being highlighting kind of what I and we as the agency think of first with behavior is just kind of prevention and how to set that, how to set up basically school-wide systems that will kind of prevent behaviors by, creating these systems within your school that will help alleviate, behavioral mental health concerns and elevate those outcomes for all populations. Since the most common framework of implementation for I think, yeah, just right there, we start out with PBIS, and obviously the most commonly known implementation model for this framework is the three-tiered system. So that's kind of how this first section is set out. We also do incorporate here, I have some links to something that is, I think, on everybody's mind now, is kind of how this PBIS framework and the school mental health systems, how they kind of integrate. And there are some links here that will help with integrating this, these two frameworks, PBIS and the SMS, into what's termed now the interconnected systems framework. So those are really good links. They start from, they go into implementing at the campus level, the district level. It's a really broad resources that will cover kind of every aspect of this type of information. As if we move along, I mean, so like I said, this first section is divided into tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Tier 1 obviously being universal interventions, tier 2 being prevention or targeted, and then tier 3 being our most intensive interventions, or tertiary prevention is another word. We have some in those sections there. We've got some kind of descriptions of PBIS and proactive preventions across all the settings. We've given some tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3 practices and examples that to review. I think they're pretty comprehensive, but not all inclusive, obviously. As you scroll through some more, Deanna, we describe kind of movement through tiers, and then we go into a section that is really focused on implementation of PBIS at the 4 different levels really at a school. You've got your level 1, at the LEA, then trickles down to the campus, to the classroom, and then individual students. And again, I think each one of these, we kind of give a little bit of a description of kind of best practices, what should be seen at each individual level. And we just go more in depth into kind of school-wide interventions. And some of the things that, obviously drive these changes is just database decision-making, the expectations and procedures for teaching expectations. And also the last, if you can scroll down a little bit more, the last one we had there is, oops, sorry. No, so getting ahead of myself, I apologize. Again, just continuing, just bringing more information to kind of classroom, what classroom interventions look like. Yeah, the most of these things, it brings a lot of different kinds of resources, links within this section that are very instrumental in having a successful. So, for instance, right there, reinforcement as immediately will just send you to different links that we've felt were following best practice, and a lot of these links are actually related to or directly related to things that are put out by the USDE and the Center of PBIS, which is funded through USDE. So really examples, again, there are a lot of examples in this first section of kind of what is kind of best practice and what should be, which you should be considering or people should be considering within each individual levels. Let's see, I think there's towards the end here, we start talking about just a real brief description on managing crisis behaviors. The thing I wanted to get to was just kind of hear this additional resources. There's a lot of information in here, a lot of links that kind of get you to, and like I referenced, a lot of these things go directly to the Center on PBIS. There is one reference that actually, I think it's earlier in that we use, and I think, and Deanna's already mentioned this, but it's the TIER network. And the TIER is one of our technical assistance networks that is kind of centered on MTSS and the MTSS framework and implementation of MTSS. And obviously part of MTSS is the PBIS framework and the integration with the school mental health. So there are, if you click on resources, there are more resources that you can find under the topics of behavior and mental health. And if you just click on those, it just gives you more resources on kind of, just specific things, universal examples, targeted examples, and intensive examples. And then again, there's more information on the interconnected system framework and how to kind of implement that. Mental health is a really good section that provides a little bit more on topics that are related to, social personal competencies, trauma-informed care, restorative practices. All these things were all used and utilized within our guidebook. And so there are additional resources that may or may not be specifically posted in the guidebook, but I just wanted to kind of show that website to kind of let you know that through there you can find, and also you can find, assistance with implementation for the PBIS framework. So I think we're going to continue through in the next section, I believe, is the FBA, and I think Nathan will be continuing on the conversation here.
Sure. Thank you, Frank. Good afternoon, everyone. Deanna, I just got the dreaded internet unstable message. So if I drop off or freeze, just pick it up and roll, just so you know what's going on. So for the first section I'll talk about is the functional behavioral assessment, or FBA section. Kind of just start off with what an FBA is. So some definitions and what the purpose of an FBA would be. We get into when an FBA would be required to conduct. So there's some links out there for state law, federal regulation. And then we have a little chart here for when it would be appropriate to consider an FBA. So it might not be required by law, but when should an ARD committee potentially consider an FBA for a student? So from here, we get into the process of actually conducting an FBA, starting with obtaining consent. There is a note here in the documents Deanna referenced from OSERS that came out in the summer. They did equivocate on that slightly on their recommendation for obtaining consent for FBAs. That's noted there. But as I'll talk about a little bit later, House Bill 785, which is a law that passed in Texas at the last ledge session talks a little bit more specifically about obtaining consent for FBAs, and that's linked at the bottom here. So I've got some best practice tips for conducting an FBA. Draw attention to that second bullet in the best practice box, which is pending completion of the FBA, consider what positive behavior supports and interventions can be put into place immediately to assist the student. That's something that I used to get questions on a lot at LEAs, and I still kind of get them in this role, which is, hey, we're conducting the FBA. Can we still put in some behavioral practices for the student in the meantime while we're gathering this data? So the answer to that is included in this guide, and the answer is yes, please do that. So step 2 here, identify the evaluation team. Go over some best practices for identifying members of the team and who should be required to be on the team. There's not much on that. And then best practice tips for training and incorporating sources of data there. Step 3, we talk about identifying target behaviors. So this one, we just wanted to focus on having an operational definition of target behaviors and really hammering that home. I know that's an issue for a lot of FBAs and IEP.
Did everyone else lose Nathan, or is
Things
it-
written like off-task
You're
behavior,
back.
but not have, oh, I froze. Okay, so we've got some examples here of operational definitions. Thank you, Deanna, for behavior. Step 4, we have collect data section. So we go over both indirect and direct sources of data. So indirect data being surveys, questionnaires, social history, anything like that for the student, and direct data being observations of the student. And so we've got some links out to examples of direct data such as ABC, frequency, latency, duration, scatter plot. Those go to different sources, but Iris Center is one of the main ones there that just kind of go over. I think they have documents that are completed examples of those types of data collection forms. We've included also here an ABC data collection form completed for you, the header at the top of the ABC, but also the setting, date, time, and effect, the consequence, effect of the consequence on the behavior, with some completed notes there for you. Step 5, we get into analyzing and writing the function statement for the ABC data and for the behavior. So we've got ABC here and what the hypothesized function is, tying it all together. And then we move into step 6 with recommended interventions. So we look at tying that ABC data into teaching strategies, reinforcement strategies, and any consequence strategies that could be provided if the challenging behavior were still to occur for the student, even with the teaching and antecedent strategies. This last chart here is a review of key components of an FBA. So these are just best practices for components of an FBA, things that should likely be included within an FBA document or an FBA evaluation. And we just go through each of those. So we've got ID target behaviors, your sources of data, your direct data observation, data collection, your documented events and times, your reinforcement that maintains the problem behavior, and then your tied together function statement. I believe this is the last step in the process here for the FBA. So reviewing the FBA as an ARD committee and then identifying replacement behaviors based on that data, which will lead you into our next section, which is the behavior intervention or behavior improvement plan, the BIP section. So this mirrors the FBA section pretty closely in terms of it goes over what is a BIP, when should an ARD committee consider a BIP, and then the steps for actually writing a behavior intervention plan. So we go over functions of behavior here, which you'll see different functions depending on sources that you access related to functions of behavior. But here we break it down into to obtain and remove as kind of a general hierarchy. And then we go into sensory activities or items, and then attention. And so technically on this document, there's 6, and we provide examples of behaviors that could fall under each of those categories. Special note there, Deanna, on replacement behaviors. So we wanted to make a note that the replacement behaviors that are listed here in this section might not necessarily be the same for all students. We don't want everybody to apply these universally. They're just examples for these specific functions in this chart. Looking at the next chart here, we've got alignment of replacement behaviors to interfering behavior function. So we really wanted to just hammer home the point in this BIP section that your targeted interventions for your BIP should be aligned with the functions that come out of your FBA. So the functions that your FBA determines based on that data collection, that's what you should be targeting with your BIP. So an interfering behavior of crying or yelling for the function of escaping a non-preferred task, such as math work, you would want to target your intervention to address escaping non-preferred work. So potentially requesting an alternate assignment or a break. We move into intervention and antecedent strategies here. And this chart on 29, Deanna, is antecedent strategies aligned to functions. So if you can follow there, we've got, let's pick the second one, obtain attention, and you follow those in that row, increase opportunities for positive recognition throughout the day, increase opportunities to respond, increase opportunities for peer interaction, and schedule more frequent adult interactions, i.e. non-contingent attention. Those are all functionally aligned to the function of obtaining attention. So those are just examples of antecedent strategies and how you would align those. We do get into instructional strategies here. So some considerations for replacing teaching replacement behaviors, obviously looking at your students' strengths, their preferences, any skill deficits that your students might have, modeling the replacement behaviors. We get into responses to behavior. So that would include if the challenging behavior were to still occur, even with your preventative strategies, your antecedent strategies and your teaching strategies, what are some potential responses that staff can have there for the challenging behavior? And then we lead into reinforcement. So if you're teaching a replacement behavior, the student engages in that replacement behavior, making sure that we reinforce that replacement behavior so we can strengthen it over time and hopefully see more of it. We do have kind of the mirror chart for FBA here. We have for BIP, which is sample BIP components. So you could, within a BIP, have a component of description of interfering behavior, the function or functions of that behavior, replacement behaviors that are functionally equivalent, antecedent and prevention strategies, instructional strategies, responses to behavior, and reinforcement. We do take that to the behavior goals in the IEP, and we've outlined trying to mirror the other technical assistance document that Deanna pulled up earlier on IEPs, where we have the same time frame, condition, behavior criteria, and an example there of a behavioral goal. We have some ongoing considerations here. This includes state law requirements. So Deanna, if you don't mind, click on House Bill 785 there, or you already have it up. House Bill 785 went into effect of June of last year. It came out of the 87th pledge. And so there's some changes in requirements for FBA's BIPs and restraint documentation and reporting that arose from that House bill. So we've linked that here. So please reference that TEA document, that FAQ, as well for some more information. We go into social. Yes, ma'am.
We're about 5 minutes from the end of webinar, so I'm gonna get to Jerry's section so we can cover some of that too.
Sure.
But so leave them with your closing thought on the BIP section.
Closing thought is look at the last two sections on social validity and progress monitoring when you have a chance.
Thank you.
And Nathan, I was just going to reiterate, there is a lot of information in this document, and we are just touching on portions of it that we wanted to highlight for you. Please go in and read through it, find the areas that are going to be most helpful to you with your situation or to help prevent some of these situations in the beginning. Because again, that's why we started at the beginning of this document to focus in on prevention. The next section we're going to be talking about is on page 44, change of placement. This is more for the administrators to think about, okay, what is a pattern of removals? What do I need to be looking at? That seems to be one of the challenges out there in LEAs. And so we wanted to make sure we had some information for you about change of placement here. If you go to the next page, it talks about the cumulative days versus consecutive days. How do you determine that? What happens at that point? And then at the bottom of that page, it talks about what to do when the removal does constitute a change of placement. What's going to happen to that child next? And if we go down a little further, we go into MDRs, or manifestation determination reviews. And this document walks you through the questions that the ARD committee has to answer. Was the behavior caused by the, or directly direct in a substantial relationship to the student's disability, or was the behavior a direct result of the school's failure to implement the student's IEPs? And it walks you through some of the scenarios and gives you some good information on that. And then at the very bottom of page 47, that's the OSERS document that just came out. It talks about section F. When you click on that, it'll take you right there. It gives you great information. It's in a question and answer format. We're really glad that they sent that out. We wish we had it a little earlier when we were doing our document, but it worked out okay. And we have the most current document up there for you with those references. And so Deanna, I'm going to pass it to you to wind up the last 3 minutes.
Yeah, I think it probably became pretty clear as everyone was going through that this document doesn't have every single piece of information you need in the text, but there are links out to lots of information. So one of our goals when we do these technical assistance guides, again, we've done, this is part of a series, we ongoing on our team work on these, is really to try to have one place where you can get to all the different resources that might connect to a topic, and try to keep them around 50 pages or less. This one gets to 67, but it's because the appendix, and we're not going to count that. So there is, a lot of links that go out to other resources that you can dig really deep into this. One thing I do want to point out before we close, where we had some change in language, was around ISS in school suspension. In the August version, we got some questions. There was a little bit of unclarity in the way that the sentence was written about ISS and removals. And so we've just reworded this section on ISS on considerations for when you may not have to count ISS potentially as a removal. This comes directly from the OSEP guidance, and we matched our language to exactly match the federal guidance. And then there are links to that question and answer document that I just shared when Jerry was going through. And then there's the final thoughts and takeaways, and then I'll get you to the appendix. So that is basically your walkthrough of the Behavior Technical Assistance Guide. Again, one in a series, check them all out. We hope that you find it valuable, that you find this and the other resources in the series valuable. Our team spends a lot of time on them. We've gotten good feedback on them historically, but we are open and welcome to hearing how people use this, if it's useful, if we should make more of them, and what topics people would like to see. So anything else from the team before we close out, or else I'll kick it back over to you, Leo.
Okay, it looks like we're at the conclusion of that presentation. Deanna, Jerry, Nathan, and Frank, thank you so much for presenting today. Thanks to all of our presenters and our guests for joining us today. As a reminder, the recording will be posted to the website within the next few business days, and you can check back for that. Have a great afternoon. Thank you all.